Welcome, it's SVPod. Just me and Red, who's very excited to be here. So excited he just left, for those of you watching on YouTube. Stanford Steve had a function to attend, traveling back, and so he'll be back with us for our next pod. When did we say that was, Jack?
Tuesday, next week.
Next week, Tuesday. Thank you. We have breaking news at the top. For those listening, not watching, I want you to picture my handsome-ish bald dome in the headphones. You're familiar with that. And on my chest, on a handsome hoodie, comfortable hoodie, is that logo. Ladies and gentlemen, we have swag. It has arrived just in time for the holidays. Let me give you some info right off the bat. We'll have links and all that stuff. Homage.com/SVP. 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 We got the basics up. Initially, the first runs, bad beats, just try, winners, the logos, and dropping in January. Signed up for 60, pitchy, woo-woo, mechanical, all the nonsense. I don't believe anyone will actually buy it, but if anyone wants to, you may. You can use a code. It's SVP. You get 20% off. That's good through the end of January. So, again, merch. It's here. Again, some basics just to begin. Some more early January of the ones that I felt like were the non-negotiables. Stay in the fight. Somebody else has, I think Davey Martinez, no longer the Nationals manager, but that was their war cry when they won the World Series. Can't do that one. Disney frowned on Pooptown, which was upsetting. Can't we just do a big emoji? Nope. All right. Homage.com/SVP. The code is SVP, 20% off. If you want to wait till after the holiday to get, mechanical, which somehow has become all of our listeners' first thought when they're stuck at the gate is to send Steve and I a note, mechanical, which I appreciate because we're here for you. Your instinct is right. We're thinking of you because we've been, as we know, A6 or whatever the gate was in Jacksonville when we end up in Norfolk. Anyway, it's here. Swag. Happy holidays. Go buy yourself this big-ass logo. All right. Man, we got a lot on the card. There's a lot happening. We just were in Los Angeles where the Eagles lost again. I'm watching First Take right now. Nick Sirianni had to announce that Jalen Hurts will remain the starter. Really? I mean, I get it. And I have to say, we did a piece the other night for game day that I wrote about how I feel like the Eagles are like a Rorschach test. And it really is a question of what you see. And it was written before they lost this game. So I'll add to it. Do you see the team that lost a 21-point lead against Dallas? Do you see the team that got bullied on its home field in its next game by the Bears? Couldn't get off the field, gave up 281 yards rushing. Do you see a team that turned it over five times? Jalen Hurts turned it over 5 times. Do you see a team that turned it over 5 times to lose its 3rd straight game? Or do you see a first-place team in the NFC East that's still a playoff team, that is still made up largely of men that won the Super Bowl? And our big boss, Mike McQuaid, who you might have heard that name mentioned through the years, he's one of my closest friends throughout the years in our business. He and I were talking yesterday just about our show, about that piece. He's like, I like the piece. He said, I wanted a conclusion. And I explained, well, I was using it more as like a discussion piece to say, all right, fellas, I'll ask the panel, because who gives a shit what I see? I want to know what RC and what Jason and Swag, what do y'all see? But I'll say it now. What I see right now, what I see is the 23 Eagles. I see the team that just kept losing games, that was still a playoff team, but couldn't stop the backslide. They couldn't dig in their heels and stop what was happening. And yeah, they made the playoffs. But if you recall, it was at Tampa Bay, and they got dominated in that football game. And I'll never forget, Stanford Steve and I were on the sidelines, and as the game's ending, we're looking at Jason, and he's down there with his guy Jeff Stoutland, I believe. I was just thinking Jeff Stout. I believe his first name is Jeff Stoutland. Their legendary offensive line coach / guru. And I'm looking at him, and Steve and I both like, oh man, he's done. You could just see it, like the realization that it was coming to an end was landing heavy in his lap, which was wild to see the look on his brother's face Sunday night in Kansas City as he's bobbling that ball. Ultimately, essentially, it's a handoff to Alshire from the Texans. And you saw Travis sit down and just eyes closed, shaking his head. I'm going to get to Kansas City in a minute, but as it relates to the reaction from Jason that night, it was that Eagles team that just couldn't stop the bleeding. We were in Seattle late that year. It was a December Monday night game. It's eerie to me how similar it feels, because they weren't bad then, and they aren't bad now. But it's just something's off. And part of it's hurts. Who is going to find enough humor? I mean, our set in Los Angeles is right there in the path of the visiting team to have to walk out. And we were in a commercial break, and he tapped me on the back, and I got down, and we said hello. I told him how much I appreciate the shit he gives me when he comes on about the DMV. Last year, Washington was in a very different space a year ago. So he and I have had some back and forth fun about the Eagles in Washington. And Steve just said, stay in a fight, you know. The Eagles are fine, but they're also not fine, which is why they find themselves now at 8-5. They were 10-1 that year in 23. Just couldn't get it right. They feel like that right now, like a team not spiraling, but searching. And I don't know where you find it, or do I? Take a look at their schedule. They've got Vegas next, who are the deans of Pooptown at the moment. The Raiders are horrible. Just horrible. Their offensive line is so bad. Kind of interesting. Pete Carroll made a move, got rid of the offensive coordinator, got rid of the special teams coach. Their biggest issue at the moment is their offensive line's horrible. His son coaches the O-line, so maybe we're not making a move at coach there, but their offensive line's the worst in football. So the Eagles play them, and they've got 2 with Washington. Washington just got shut out by a team that was shut out the game before. Now, granted, they changed their quarterback back. They went to J.J. McCarthy, who looked pretty good. But Dan Quinn, who I really like, called the game a complete mission failure. Yeah, it was awful. You've got Jaden Daniels out there. Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. I'm looking at Hurts. They have Jaden Daniels out there who throws a pick and is chasing down Van Ginkel, gets shoved down, lands on his elbow. And I think every Washington fan is at a place now where it comes to him particularly that says, get him off the field. Now you see Cincinnati with Burrow and how Burrow's playing and the level he's playing, but his toe has healed sufficiently to allow him to play, whereas Daniels has got this big, bulky brace on, and he's not the biggest dude to begin with, and he gets shoved down on his arm, and you're like, oh, my God, no more. What I'm saying is, from Philadelphia's vantage point, they've got 3 games that, they should be at 11 wins just there. Because Washington, not that they've quit. I'm not saying they've quit. They just aren't equipped right now, seemingly, to put up a ton of fight. At least not based on what we saw most recently in a game against Minnesota. So there's 3 games right there, and the Bills. So don't know about those, but you should be able to get to 11 just by 2 Washington, 1 Vegas. If you don't, then you got real problems. Real problems. I know full well you don't pencil anything in the National Football League, but if you aren't able to beat those teams right now, then you're really in dire trouble. And they might be anyway, the way it looks. 3 losses in a row, all against teams the likes of which you would encounter in the playoffs. I know Dallas isn't a playoff team at the moment, but we all know that they're constructed in a way where they're different than Vegas, and they're different than Washington at the moment. I just find it wild how broken both Super Bowl teams from a season ago appear at the moment. Because for Philly, the problems are the problems. The turnovers, Hurts had the most he's ever had. You got Sirianni having to say, yeah, he's still the starter. But you got the Raiders coming in. On the other hand, you've got Kansas City. It's just remarkable how nothing is easy for them at the moment. And they have lived for a decade in an incredibly rare space where they made it look easy. And they won at a ridiculous clip. They won all the close games, 10-0 last year in the 1 scores. And people that talked a lot about how, man, I don't know that you can keep doing that. Because you can't. You can't win every coin flip game. And it wasn't a 1-score game the other night because ultimately the Texans kicked a late field goal to make it a 10-point game. But Kansas City, there's nothing easy for them. And they're sub 500. They're not winning the AFC West. That's the first time that's happened in a decade. And at the moment, they're not a playoff team. And they need a lot to go their way. They need people in front of them to stumble. Their schedule sets up in a fairly agreeable fashion, but the issues that they face are the teams that are ahead of them in the playoff standings, whether it's the Chargers, whether it's the Bills, whether it's the Texans. Who else has? Well, they do have the head-to-head against the Colts. Jacksonville. All those teams have already beaten the Chiefs. See how head-to-head matters? We'll get to Notre Dame and which college fan base hates us the most. It's a long list. But Kansas City is not a playoff team. They might be. And at this point, if they are, I think we're done saying, well, no one would want to see them because they're scary out. And Steve's not here for me to ask, remember when you said they're the best team? Well, they were the Super Bowl favorites at one point in October. No one's scared of them. No one. Because they're not scary. There's nothing scary about them. And it's wild to see just how broken is a word that's tricky because it's loaded. It's a loaded word. It supplies it suggests that they've failed or quitting or something, and broken means like Humpty Dumpty, can't be put back together. I'd stop before I say that. But flawed, vulnerable, ordinary, yeah, all those things apply right now about the Chiefs, who are currently 10th in the playoff picture. The Colts in front of them, I suppose, is where you start in terms of other things worth discussing, because Philip Rivers, ladies and gentlemen, is back on a practice squad. We might get them on a Monday night 2 weeks from now with Phillip Rivers starting against San Francisco. We'll be there. I don't root for anything except stories. I mean, in terms of if you have a 2-hour pregame show to talk about that game and it's Phillip Rivers starting, sign us up for that just because there's a hell of a lot to discuss. A grandpa who apparently his son's team was running Steichen's offense, so he's fairly well-versed at it. But just the notion of a guy that's been out of the game for 5 years, the look on Troy Aikman's face as that news was breaking with Troy literally in the segment that we do was priceless. Troy gets this great smile. If you wonder, like, what's Troy Aikman like? Exactly like you'd think. A guy who's a Hall of Famer that looks like that, and it just he has a brown wallet, okay? You know what his wallet says on it. That's Troy. And the look, that smile, like he gets this smile where his nostrils kind of flare and his eyes get kind of big and he's nodding his head going, all right. So 25 years, he goes, hey, I'm not taking a pay cut. But the notion that is what the Colts have to turn to, because this season, which just a few weeks ago felt like it was on this amazing trajectory, and now the wheels haven't completely fallen off, but the momentum has stopped. Interestingly enough, as we talk about Kansas City, the one victory they've got against anybody in that space pursuing a playoff spot was at home against the Colts, which is the beginning of the end for them. The Colts had a 20-6 lead, I want to say it was, in that game. Maybe it was 20-9. Whatever it was, that lead evaporated. And they ended up losing the game 23-20. Was it 20-6 or 20-9? Yeah. Regardless, it's a 2-score lead that they had. And then their offense just stopped functioning. Jones had the leg injury. He was reduced to being sort of stationary. They lost that one. Then they lost to Houston. Then they lost to Jacksonville. They always lose to Jacksonville. And so now they've backslid. And so often you see when there's an injury, and I'm not going to do that internet doctor diagnosis, but I think we all understand. Maybe we've lived it. If you've got a knee or an ankle that's bothering you, you compensate, and then you cause something else to happen. I don't know that that's why Daniel Jones' right Achilles gave way, but it did, which just sucks because, I mean, here's a guy that we all know his history with New York, and then he goes to Minnesota for a minute and went to Indy because he thought he could win the job, did. It's a contract year. It's a chance. He's bet on himself. Now, late in the year, you bust your Achilles. I mean, when could he be back? Who the hell knows? So I feel for him, but I feel for this Colts team as well, who have seen themselves get caught and now passed by Jacksonville. The Houston Texans are as scary as anybody right now because their defense is the best in the NFL. And so the Colts are now in such a dire place that where Riley Leonard comes in, he's got a knee issue. You bring in Phillip Rivers. They went all in, got Sauce Gardner, and it's why you hear people say, I mean, it's hard to win in this league. You need so many things to go your way. And the injury luck that is so critical has gone the wrong way for them. And now their 3-game losing streak is magnified by the loss of Jones. And here's Phillip Rivers. And I don't know what to say about it. I'm not going to make jokes. It's actually just a truly compelling thought that potentially you could see a future Hall of Famer out there. And what's I didn't know this, but now I do. You know, your clock to go to Canton starts 5 years after you retire. If he comes back and is active, his clock starts again. He obviously doesn't care. Good for him. He sees an opportunity. But imagine, all right, next Monday night we'll be in Pittsburgh where it's going to be 19 degrees, and I promise I'm going to wear layers. I promise. I got an outfit plan, everybody. Layers. We'll be indoors in Indy the week after that, potentially for Phillip Rivers at 44 starting against San Francisco. which San Francisco's rep on D is more than what the reality is at the moment because of injuries to Bosa and Warner, etc. But I don't care who he's playing against. He'd be playing against Charlie and Sam's flag team. You're still out there 44. Quite a lot like some of the flag games where you got somebody's dad out there gimping around. Difference is our dads haven't thrown for 50,000 yards. A little different. What else do we have from just laundry list within the National Football League? I've questioned what the Chicago Bears are. Just kept pointing out, look who they beat. They hadn't beaten anybody with a winning record except Pittsburgh, who was with Mason Rudolph. It's because of Rodgers. And then they went and they beat up Philadelphia. And they lost to Chicago the other day. But you can earn a lot of respect and a loss, and they did. That was a hell of an entertaining football game. And late in the game, you go for it on 4th and 1, and Caleb, if he could have waited a half second more, he's got more open underneath. But what took the shot for the receiver in the end zone? A hell of a play is made by Green Bay. Ball gets picked. Packers win, and the Bears go from the 1 seed when the day started in the NFC to like number 8 in a day. Still in the playoff mix, but it's a little bit frightening for the Bears to look at the fact that the Lions are their last game of the year, and I wonder, could that be for a playoff spot? Potentially it could. But the Bears showed plenty in that, a lot. They showed that they're every bit the equal of Green Bay. I did appreciate the LaFleur handshake, the blow-by on Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson talked some shit about, can't wait to shake Matt LaFleur's hand twice after we beat him. And LaFleur went on with Big Cat and PFT, and they asked him, like, how about that? And LaFleur's smiling, but I thought you could sense how he felt about it. Then you certainly saw how he felt in that handshake. Apparently, after Johnson said that, he said, "I'm getting all these calls going, hey, do you know him?" And he said, "Not really." And he's smiling when he's saying it, but I mean, don't start none, won't be none. So that handshake, I thought was I want rivals like that to both be good and have some dislike. It's way more fun. Way more fun. Everybody's too cordial now. You need some old spirited Silky Johnson player haters ball. What did you tell Buck Nasty his mom's drank out of a dog bowl? I don't remember. I can't quote the underwear line, but I could, but I'm not gonna. It's the holiday season. I think right now, and I was gonna do it, but I realized it would be corny and stupid. I wished I had all the NFL teams' football helmets. Remember the helmets? We talked about this recently. You'd walk through the grocery store and there were the football helmets in the little plastic bubble. I'm dating myself now, but youngsters, you have to beg your mom for a quarter because it was a quarter, which doesn't seem like a lot, but like 70s, 80s, quarter felt like a big deal. You put that quarter in there, turn it, you get the plastic helmet, and you had no idea what it was going to be. You wanted a Redskin helmet, and you could see it down there, but then you'd turn the wheel and you'd get the Cardinals or the Eagles, which you certainly didn't want because the Cardinals used to be in their Washington's division, which I know sounds ridiculous, but they were. Anyway, I wished I had like a big giant bucket or bag that I could put the helmets in, and I'd reach my hand around and pull it out. But absent having ping pong balls or something, the idea of me pulling written paper, pieces of paper with names on them out of a hat would look low budget because it is. And I realize there's no need to make the analogy, although I'm really kind of doing it in a long-winded way here. Point is, you put 6 or 7 names from the AFC in a hat. Pull it out. Denver, New England, Jacksonville. I don't care. Pittsburgh? Baltimore? I don't know about either of those. Pull any name out of a hat and you get your AFC representative for the Super Bowl. Would you believe it? Houston, Buffalo. Sure. I really haven't a clue. It's December the 8th, 9th? Oh, God, 10th. Get your act together. Again, homage.com/SVP. You know what Mom would love? A hoodie. What is this? It's SVP, Mom. Who? You got 15 days. Act accordingly. Actually, you don't have 15. You got like 14. Probably more like 13. But the point is, it's the middle of December, and I would buy any of those teams from the AFC. Any. NFC, same thing. I think there's a bit more clarity. Like the Rams a lot. You guys know that. I've been saying it for months. San Francisco, yes. Seattle, yes. Philly, not really. Green Bay, yes. Detroit, not in, but yes. Tampa, I don't know what we got there. Not a lot. But there's enough teams that I think there are some much clearer favorites. And the reason that the favorites aren't as easy to buy in the AFC is because it's Bo Nix and Drake May and teams that haven't been there really. I know Denver made it last year. But to not have true, obvious, accepted favorites this far into a season feels unusual. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Kansas City and Philly are where they are. The fact that Baltimore continues to struggle. I'll die on that hill with them, but not as vehemently in terms of defending them as I did Cincinnati last year. And I defended Cincinnati last year because Burrow is Burrow and looked great. This year, Jackson just doesn't look the same. Don't know if the hamstring hasn't healed to the point that he's right. He's also, showed up on like those injury reports with the toe or whatever. Although I think it's just rest days in the NFL. You have to create some kind of a reason. Say anything. I always would just say he has diarrhea. Say he's got leaky butt. What difference does it make? It's all made up. It's a rest day, but yeah, he's got something. Or maybe after what happened with Lamar earlier this year, there really is something, because he practiced and then didn't start, and that was a whole big thing. But I don't know about them. They're hard for me to quit. But watching them the other day, Tim Hasselbeck, who's on me every Sunday night, said he felt like he just didn't sense the urgency that you should feel in a game like that. They had that pass to Likely that seemed like it was a touchdown, but it was ruled not one. I don't know. There looked like a pick where Rodgers and, was it Humphrey? I'm not sure. They had sort of like simultaneous possession that went Pittsburgh's way. And they called personal foul on a field goal attempt because you're not allowed to hit the long snapper. And I looked at the video. It wasn't egregious. It certainly wasn't a personal foul. That's a play-on thing. But they called it, led to a touchdown. All these little death by 1,000 paper cuts, and Baltimore's just... And even if they won that game, would you have left it feeling like, you know what, Baltimore looks good? Not really. So I'm stuck with them because I still buy them. But Pittsburgh, who a week ago was yelling they want to fire their coach, gets a win. Now they come home for Monday night against Miami. And this is a chance for me to use an off-ramp here to say, salute to Miami. They and Carolina have done the never-before-seen escape from Pooptown. Never before seen. They played that game against Cleveland earlier this year, and I crushed them afterwards because that's as dispirited, disinterested, just sad, the weather's bad and we don't want to be here performance that I can recall seeing. And it was way too early in the season for a team to have quit. And they seem to have quit. They have not. Since that game against Cleveland, they've won 5 out of 6 games. They've won 4 in a row. And they're on the same line on the in the hunt graphic as the Kansas City Chiefs because they have the same record as the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs played a much more difficult schedule. There are some bad teams that they have beaten along the way in that. Number 1, I don't care. Number 2, they beat Buffalo in there also. Number 3, which really maybe should be number 1, when you're in Pooptown and you play the way that they played against Cleveland and you're able to win 5 of 6, I don't care who you beat because you completely turn a season around, and Mike McDaniel and that entire group deserves credit for that. Now it's going to be 19 degrees on Monday night in Pittsburgh, and we'll put up the graphic and say 2 in the cold, blah, 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 blah. Maybe they lose again. I don't know. But what they've done collectively, worthy of acknowledgement. Just like Carolina, playing themselves into contention in the NFC South. The door gets open for them a little bit because the Saints went to Tampa and won. The Saints, I think you guys are still in Pooptown. I don't know what to do. Steve would give me crap about whatever we're doing as it relates to that. The Saints have wins at Tampa Bay and at Carolina. They've won 3 games total. 2 of them are against division rivals on the road. I don't know how that happened. They also beat the Giants in a game where the Giants turned the ball over 5 consecutive times to end it. Those are the Saints' 3 wins. I give Shuck credit in the rain. They look good. Or at least he put his head nosed into the mix and ran a couple of touchdowns in. But the Dolphins and the Panthers escaped from Pooptown, worthy of recognition. While we're at it quickly, Pooptown, Raiders, hit the drop.
Pooptown!
Giants, you're still in it.
Pooptown!
Browns.
Pooptown!
Shedeur Sanders played well. Won the Hemi. Threw a couple touchdowns that cost me greatly in fantasy. We'll get to that. Jets, yes, Pooptown.
Pooptown!
Washington, I'm sorry.
Pooptown!
Atlanta, yes.
Pooptown!
Arizona, yes.
Pooptown!
New Orleans and the Titans both won. You know what I'm saying? It's Pooptown's a made-up thing. I can say anything. You get a weekend pass. You get an all-week pass. Hall pass for the week. Escape from Pooptown. Go do what you like. Have fun. Explore the space. New Orleans and Tennessee. You're free to go for the week. Titans are not good. We understand that. But they won a game. So furloughed for the week from there. They get to go run around. No one cares, but I just want to say it. I said last podcast I will not complain ever again about my draft grades in fantasy because I was very mad. I said I'm keeping the receipts. Well, this is me doing the thing no one ever does when it comes to fantasy football. It's giving myself an internal review at the end of it. I get F's across the board. Failure. Did anyone else go to school where, when I was a little kid in school, you got E's, not F's? Looking back, what was that? Montgomery County schools back in the day, you got E's. Now, I never got an E. Now, when I got to Maryland, I got some F's. That's a different story. It was E's, A, B, C, D, E, which I guess makes sense. But then you'd say, well, why is it F? Well, it's F for fail. Oh, well, then what's D? Dumb? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just A, B, C, D, E actually kind of makes sense. The grade lower than D is E. Except, no, we passed over E and you get an F. Anyway, I get an E or an F. That's my grade. 4 leagues, 0 for 4, no playoff games. Hard to do. Went 1-13 in a league. Couldn't do that if you tried. 1-13. Had the first waiver pick every week, didn't make any difference. 1-13. But the most costly and most painful is the most lucrative league I'm in. I was 7-2. We lost 5 consecutive games, and it's a bunch of poker guys that are smart math folks, just like 99% to make it, with the odds getting, worse as we went. But still, an overwhelming favorite the last week to make it. Every single thing that went wrong did. I faced a guy that had injuries and not one but 2 Cleveland Browns in the lineup, Judy and Fannin, scoring touchdowns. The prolific Cleveland offense in the snow, hanging giant numbers on me. Again, no one cares. This is just cathartic for me. Just hit fast forward on the pod. I don't give a shit. I have to do this for me. I have to process this anger and pain so that I can move on. But we're going to have to burn it down across the board. Our approach, got to burn it down. I need better intel. All you folks that send me the emails about, here are the draft dominating selections you'll make to always dominate your league. The same ones everyone in my league is getting from you. You're not giving me anything you're not giving everybody else. I'm going to tune out the noise. I'm going to turn my gaze inward. McConaughey. I'm going to turn my gaze inward. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to let the loins hang low. That's what I'm going to do. That's it. No, I'm not. I don't have any playoff games this week. Tootski? Maybe that's what I need. Some party favors. Where's Dad? He's on an 8-day bender because he didn't make the playoffs. He's pissed. It's Christmas. Yeah, it's okay. Dad's going to go to rehab. Get everything together. It was sad, man. I was watching. There was literally a sequence that could have happened in the Monday Nighter where if it did happen, I'd have escaped and made the playoffs. I didn't. And again, no one cares. But maybe you've lived similar things. I just happen to have an outlet to share it publicly. I did actually on Bad Beats the other night, and I said to everyone in the league, I hate all of you and hope you have bad Christmases. And I meant that. I really don't even know these people. And so it seems mean-spirited to wish bad things on them at the holidays. I just did, out of spite and anger and hate. My Grinch heart has grown in size and power. Speaking of people and hate at the holidays, man, the reaction pod has elicited quite a reaction from a number of you. I don't know who hates us more. BYU folks, Notre Dame folks, although you're led by your athletic director at the moment, just shooting a Tommy gun in all directions. The little guys are mad at me too. And I want to say I thought I made it clear. I'm not anti James Madison or Tulane. And people pointed out, and they're not wrong, this isn't some feel-good story. They did what the rules said they could do to make it. You're right. No one put him in as isn't this nice? When I say feel-good story, what I mean by that, I thought was clear, is this is this is really cool, Tulane made the playoff. Isn't that cool? Sure. By rule, they make it. Same with James Madison. But that only happens because the ACC fucked it up so bad that their tiebreakers created a situation where their winner, well, first of all, back it up. And credit to Duke for winning the game, but you had a 5-loss team in your championship game that was never going to make the playoff if they won. And so one of your automatics isn't automatic because tiebreakers are set up so poorly that it helps create this chaos. You've got the Notre Dame athletic director. He's now being, tisk-tisked by fellow commissioners. Well, actually, I say fellow commissioners of conferences. Notre Dame, as we know, isn't in a conference. But he was described as egregious, right? Brett Yormark said Pete Bavacqua, his behavior has been egregious. Pete Bavacqua was doing what any athletic director would do. He's bowing up for his group. But when you say you had the most dominant 10-game stretch in the history of college football, come on, man. I get being mad. You have a really good team. And we said it repeatedly. Team that Steve and I both thought, if they get in, they could absolutely win it. Because they're built for that kind of a run. But saying you had the most dominant 10-game run in the history of college football, when you're beating Stanford and Syracuse, Navy's good. Like people were like, I saw people saying, well, they're not a power something team. Navy's good. BC, they beat Fordham and won one other game. You had one win over a team that was ranked in the end, and that's USC. It's just, again, it's posturing. But when you say that like that, when you say we had the most dominant 10-game run in the history of college football, no, you didn't. Because you didn't beat great teams along the way. You beat the crap out of some bad teams, and that is what good teams tend to do. I'll give you that. But what I think, who cares? You're talking about a commissioner calling your conduct egregious and going after Jim Phillips with the ACC. And the ACC has its share of blame here because, again, the fact that their conference championship game is just so poorly set up. But the good news is they can fix it, just like they fixed last year's playoff seedings, where you had teams like Boise State and Arizona State getting buys that made no sense. They weren't two of the four best teams. So the committee and the people that are in charge are like, well, that's dumb. Let's fix it. Well, you could fix this too. And it probably means going to 16, which means that BYU and Notre Dame could be in, should be in. And at the expense of Tulane and James Madison, no. I think getting to 16, now you've got 2 of 16 that don't have any chance of winning the playoff. Makes more sense than 2 of 12. That was my point, that the field isn't large enough to have 2 teams in it. I won't call them feel-good stories. I'll be honest. 2 teams that have no chance to win the playoff. Is that better? There's no chance that you're winning 4 football games. And I just don't understand how you have a field that small that can have rules set up that allow them to qualify for 2 of the 12 spots. I don't want to exclude them. I think by getting to 16, you feel a little better about that. But then all we're going to do is bitch about whoever it would have been at 16. Would it have been Michigan, USC? I don't even know. Utah. Once we get past, who are we talking about there? Utah, USC. Well, Duke, I guess, would have got in this thing because they won the ACC. I don't know. But, I mean, a lot of people are mad. Steve and I acknowledging that, you look at that BYU resume and you go, there's some stuff there. You should be fired for not talking about this before. You played Texas Tech, hi, buddy, twice, and you got beat by 27 and 22. And so the best team you played beat you by 49 points combined in 2 football games. So there are arguments to be made for you. And I understand why you guys are mad. But then when you guys do what every fan base does, which is turn this on us because we got what we want, because we're the committee. We're the committee. ESPN's seeding the tournament, putting the teams in the tournament. No, it's the committee, and I get it. It's much, much easier for you to send out tweets and be mad at us, which is what you do. But what's the talking point now? What's the agenda? Oh, all right. We're pro ACC. That's what we are. 2 years ago, Florida State didn't get in, and we weren't pro ACC then. At least we weren't being accused of that. It's just hard to keep it straight. There's one consistent. You were always going to blame us. Which, okay, it's been that way for a long time. I'm with you on Alabama. I'm with you on that that loss not costing them. And I talked about it on Sunday. There should have been some penalty for that, and there just wasn't. And that's where I guess that's where the agenda comes in. I don't know. But I get the anger from Notre Dame. I get the anger from BYU. I think BYU losing both the games they played against the best team they played as badly as they did isn't a great case for we should be included. I think Bama losing as badly as they did to start their season and end the season and just staying at 9 didn't make sense. That's what I'd be the most angry about. And then that's where you say, well, that's ESPN agenda. You got what you wanted. Because we're in the room. We're in the room. It's got to be something better than the committee, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. We got a lot of things we need to figure out in college football. NIL, portal, people staying, places, coaches, players, something. I don't know. But we got merch. Well, how about that? We got merch. What else do I have for y'all? I want to just acknowledge early season college hoops, which has been spectacular. I think it's awesome what the sport has recognized that unlike the football version of the tournament, you can play and should play great teams early to find out what you are, and there's no consequence to having a bad record. Florida lost last night a close game against UConn, high-level game in the Garden, and I want to say Florida's 5-4. I'm not positive. Is that what the record is? Yeah, Florida, the reigning champs, they're 5-4. But they lost to Arizona to start the season. Arizona is insane. They lost to TCU. That was a weird loss. Because TCU's got some decent wins. They played Michigan close, which is worthy of a game ball on its own. They lost a close one in Cameron. They had Duke down late, lost on a late 3, and they lose in UConn's home away from home, the Garden last night by 4. So they're 5-4. But if you watch them play, you know that's a dangerous group that's going to be a pain in the ass in March. And so they're sitting at 5-4, and they're going to lose a bunch of games in the SEC because the SEC is just deep, and you're going to lose games. But they're fine because if you watch them, you can see that they're a team that'll be a tournament team. And by the way, if their record's bad, that means they're on a lower line than their talent probably equates to. Then you're the team playing and going, wait, Florida's a 6 or 7 or something? Oh, God. They're actually comprised more like a top 4 seed. So you can play a lot of out-of-conference games in the deep end of the pool and lose, and it's not going to be disqualifying. And I love how many of these cross-sectional games. It feels like every night we're turning it on. It's Gonzaga and Kentucky, Gonzaga and Michigan. It's Purdue and Iowa State. It's all this, that. And some of these are made for TV deals. Used to be the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Now it's the ACC SEC. Then you got Jimmy V week, so you got these big games. BYU had a wild... Speaking of BYU, you guys have a hell of a basketball team that erased a 22-point deficit in the Garden last night. Rob Wright, a late 3. You're a top 5 team in that as well. So BYU, fortunately, you could just pivot your attention to an excellent basketball team that could be making a Final Four run potentially after your excellent football season ended with just a couple of losses. But there's a team out there at the moment. Arizona looks really like something special. Iowa State going into Purdue and beating the Boilermakers in Mackey the way they did was wild. But Michigan is just horrifying at the moment. I texted with an assistant who has faced them, and the assistant said, I think that might be the best team I've ever seen. They're just so big. They beat people by 40 like it's nothing. They had that Vegas tournament where in consecutive games they beat San Diego State, who's decent, by like 40. They beat Auburn by like 30. And then Gonzaga, who had beat Maryland the night before by 40, Michigan beat by 40. They beat Rutgers by 40. They just beat Villanova, who came in 7-1, and Villanova hadn't really played anybody. The one loss they had was to BYU, I think, to start their season. But they had Nova down mid-30s like it was nothing. And they come to College Park on Saturday. Ay. Maryland is going to be the biggest home underdog they've ever been, would be my guess. Because that's what Michigan looks like at the moment. They're... it's December. Long way to go, fine. Just put on your television and watch them. There's about 5 teams that have shown a real gear here. As I mentioned, Arizona State, Iowa State. Not Arizona State, Arizona, Iowa State. Duke, an impressive win over the weekend going into Michigan State and winning. UConn looks the part. I think Danny's got a squad. Houston's always really good. But just in terms of the teams I've seen in these sort of cross-sectional games play at a level that looks different, Arizona, Michigan, Iowa State, Duke for sure. Purdue will be okay. It's just jarring because they don't ever lose like that, ever, in Mackey. That's an incredible venue. To go in there and beat them like that, I mean, damn. That was something. I wish Steve were here. Steve always has stuff. We get an update on the nose hair. I'm sure everybody's curious about that. Hope it went well. I don't know if he's done it yet. I assume I'll get a report when he does. I don't think I mentioned Jacksonville yet. That's a failure on my part. And the AFC North. They look impressive. Do they still play Rivers again, potentially? Did they get Jags?
Yeah, Jacksonville plays Indy again.
In Indy. That's the problem for the Colts, too, is their schedule's relentless. Just relentless. They don't have an easy game. It's like Seattle, San Francisco, Jacksonville. It's all difficult teams. But I don't have a clue. Put names in a hat. Pull them out. It could be anybody. I mean, not anybody. By rules, certain teams have been eliminated. They are currently in the Pooptown suite, except for those who escaped from Pooptown. 15 days. Mark your calendars. Get yourself together. Get your shopping done. One more time on the way out. I'm gonna I'll tweet this out too. Homage.com/SVP. Merch. Basics to start. More to come. Pooptown signed up for 60 mechanical. That's after January 1st. You want to wait? That's fine. But the merch is finally here. Thanks as always to my main man, Guy Fieri, for pushing me to sell merch. I'm like, Guy, no one's going to buy this. He's like, you'll be surprised. Maybe we'll be surprised. If one person is walking around wearing a shirt that says mechanical, I'll be truly honored. Pitchy, woo-woo. Just the stupid shit we do that somehow becomes part of the zeitgeist, becomes part of people's, when Scott Hansen's firing it up on Red Zone, gives me a name check. We might have a little pitchy woo-woo here. My man. We appreciate y'all. If you're listening on Wednesday, if you're hearing this after the fact, you'll have missed it. But we got the 30 for 30 Booyahs on tonight. I've seen it. SportsCenter is going to come on right after it ends. I've written something to sort of start the show, kind of like a one big thing sort of a deal. But it's yeah. I mean, you can guess. I'll just say that the ending. It's a knockout punch. It's heavy. And anyway, just trying to get myself mentally prepared for what coming on the air will be like, as that is sort of the handoff from that end to the beginning of a show. And Common's going to be on with us, written a song about Stewart, which is actually really cool, that we'll be doing. So anyway, that's, if you're hearing this on Wednesday in advance of Wednesday night, that doc will be making its debut on the air. And as I say, haven't gotten to see it. You can guess in advance that you'll need to be sort of ready for where it's going to take you. So that's on the way. We will be back next week following the Monday Nighter in Pittsburgh. For those of you that have fantasy football playoffs, good for you. Good for you. 0 for 4. Gaze inward. Loins low. I'm going to start putting together draft boards now. Never start too early. Get yourself some swag. The big man will be back next week. Red's giving me that look like it's time to go. Have a good week. Happy holiday season. Christmas 15 days. Act accordingly.